this is Solar PV once again from PV Expo in Tokyo, in Japan. And now we are speaking with very famous company globally, with Marubeni. So recently there was a big news coming from Emirates about the over 1 gigawatt project that you have won. But as we are in Japan, so let's focus more on the Japanese activities. So maybe firstly, because we had a very short chat before and you told me about a lot of activities of Marubeni. So could you tell me more about Marubeni business in solar, but also, related clean technologies?
First of all, thank you for the opportunity to have this interview, having us here. If I explain a little bit more about the business we have in solar, is actually we have over 25 years in the solar business, initially supplying the materials, so in the upstreams. So we have been supplying the polysilicon material, the crucibles, a diamond wire, steel wire, chemicals that is used to make the solar cells, the glass, backsheet material, EVA material that's used to make the panel itself. We start then going more to downstream position. We start actually selling the panels initially in Australia. And in 2012, we were the largest distributor of solar panels in Australia. And then we started bringing actually a lot of the overseas companies, the solar panels here to Japan, and starting making the system, working with them, making them understand what's necessary for them as a overseas company, as many from China, how to sell their panels in the Japanese market.
Okay, so you are making like a kind of partnership in order to facilitate them entrance to the market.
As a matter of fact, that's what we did, because in the beginning, for them to sell in the Japanese market, they had to have a Japanese certification. They had no idea how to apply for certification, what is needed for certification. So we had to work with the manufacturers, even change their bill of materials sometimes, because there are certain products or certain material that is accepted and not accepted here in Japan. So we work with them to adapt their product to the Japanese market, work with them to go through the certification process so they could then start the business here in Japan.
But afterwards you became even bigger fan of solar, yes, and you became also IPP, yeah?
Yes, so we have, like I said, Marubeni is a large group. We have also a power group, and today we have in Japan about 350 megawatts of solar IPP projects. One of the largest that it's owned by the companies are 82 megawatts that is based in Kyushu. That is also another project owned by Marubeni.
So Marubeni is active only in large-scale projects or also in different, like residential, commercial?
Yes, so in terms of for the IPP, we would be more focused in the mega solar space. But as the supply or distribution selling of the solar panels, we actually sell to all the segments. We sell to the residential segment, we sell to the commercial. There's one market that's called low voltage, which is under 50 kilowatts here. We also serve a lot for that market, and as well as mega solar.
Okay, so I assume that you know quite well the situation on the market, and that's why my next question would be, we experienced quite a huge increase in solar capacities like a few years ago, and recently this market was, going down due to especially of the reduced feed-in tariff system. And what is actually the situation? How do you see the year 2017?
So, what you describe, it is correct. However, one thing that is so apparent, I think, in the market is what happened is there's a lot of projects they got the right to be built. So they have a contract for, let's say, 42 yens per kilowatt hour, but it was never built. What happening is really today is that those projects, so the government is putting more pressure and say, okay, you have until this date, it's either you build the project or you have to sell the project to someone else or you have to pay a tariff so you can extend the period to build. So that's one thing that's happened. The second is that they allow now this project, you can change the equipment from your original application. This is something that they couldn't be done before. If you apply using a panel maker, you have to install that panel manufacturer. But giving the ability now to change that, so they're taking that and using for, obviously today, the panel cost is much lower than when they apply a few years back.
And also we have, new technologies coming, efficiency increased.
So in summary, what I'm saying is, yes, the trend is that the market is going down. However, there's a lot of project that it was not built. And these projects are being built now because the government is putting pressure. And the reason I'm saying that is because we've seen a lot of a high demand now for solar panels again in the market.
Okay. And what about residential?
I think the residential market has always been seen as a market that it can have a growth. It hasn't happened. It has been actually very stable in the past years. It's not a small market. It's still over 1 gigawatt system that installed in Japan every year. The boom hasn't happened. I would say that, well, one of the cases, the feed-in tariff is going down, so now there's not much incentive for people to get a loan and build the system. I've seen this time here in the show people coming up with different business models, such as what we have in the United States
With Solar City.
with Solar City type of business with zero down payment, and then you can install your system and just make a monthly payment as a electricity bill. And after 15 years, the system, it's yours. So that is the change that's market. How that will pay or how much that will facilitate the growth, I think is still to be seen.
And which challenges do you still see on the Japanese market for solar and also for other clean technologies?
So
Is it just financing?
no, one, it has to do with the demand. At the end of the day, the solar, you're producing electricity. So it's very known that Japan, it was supplied 30% by nuclear power plants. That's no longer there. The government has minded that they want to bring back until about 20% of the base load. It hasn't happened yet. The renewables will be a very small portion of that. It's still significant. But the challenge, like I said, is not only here in Japan, is that the renewables cannot be seen as one of the most reliable, in a sense, source of energy. So Japan, they have to have the base load, still heavily depending on the gas power plants, and then you have on top of that, you have a little bit of renewables.
What about storage?
The storage,
No, because you are speaking about base load, but in a lot of countries they are considering storage as a solution.
yes. So because the demand in Japan, actually, you have more supply than demand. This is something that is really happening. So the grid is still have capacity to take this additional solar or wind power that's been installed, generally speaking. There are two areas in Japan, one in Hokkaido and one in Kyushu. These are separate islands, much smaller areas, that they are being affected, the grid, by how much solar is being installed. These two areas, we have seen a lot of storage systems being installed to really stabilize the grid.
And Marubeni is also active in storage?
We are actually active on that. We're working with some of the battery storage systems, and we are working, trying to come here in Japan, but again, the Japan market is still a small market for storage system. We are more focused in the US for storage now.
Okay, so what about foreign markets? Because you are also working on other markets, yes? So which are the key markets for Marubeni?
For solar,
Yes, especially for the solar business.
so one other thing that we see.
Besides now Emirates, yes?
Yes. Besides Emirates, we've seen Central America is one market that is growing. Mexico is growing a lot, actually, the capacity of solar that's been installed there. The projects are much more attractive now, actually, in Mexico. There are some risks involved on that. The US market had a 16 gigawatts installed last year, but the returns are much lower than the others. So it's a lower risk, lower return. It's a more mature market. Solar, we are not so much active in the US. That's one of the reasons. But we are working now in the Central America and looking some in the South America as well.
And do you imagine that in the future Marubeni will be like, the full clean energy supplier, including, for example, electric cars, etc.? Do you have this kind of strategy within the group?
Yes, one more thing that we haven't mentioned here, but it's about the small wind turbines. We actually working now with small wind turbines. It's a market that has a very attractive feed-in tariff now in Japan. It's a 55 yens per kilowatt hour. It has to be less than 20 kilowatt system. And we are working with a company from Ireland, one company from the US, and we are now selling those products here in Japan as well. We like we talk about the storage system. We are also working. We also have become one of the largest power producers, suppliers of electricity here in Japan. So Japan had a deregulated market.
It become like a utility, yeah?
Yes. Marubeni already was supplying the electricity, but only for commercial facilities. From last year, with the deregulation, so now you can sell to the residential people, to the consumer people.
That's interesting. So last question. So how do you, or before last, how do you see this year market? What will be the size of the market for solar business in Japan?
In Japan, I think it will not be much different than last year. So you are talking, Japan will be, I think, the third largest in the world. China, US, and Japan will be the third one. That's how it's.
And what about, the years to come? Do you believe that Japan still will be, one of the key markets?
Yeah, so Japan, one of the, as you know, is a small country, it's a small island. So there's just so much land that you can install solar. So honestly, I don't see this keeping going in the next 10 years just because there's not enough land. We have seen, because the solar panels equipment has come down, the price is so fast that the developing countries now are investing more and more in renewables. I think with the agreement that was made in Paris a few years ago, that developing countries also have to take part of that. So they're making an investment. We've been working with companies who are developing a lot of projects in Africa as well, in Kenya, Mozambique, South Africa. South Africa is a very hot market these days for solar. And we are working with these companies there. One of the issues is finance, being very honest.
You're helping also, yes?
We are also trying to participate and help with the finance. So outside of Japan, we see in Africa as a big market coming. Of course, in Abu Dhabi is a big market. I think the Abu Dhabi, one phenomenon that is happening too is because the oil price, in a sense, came down, was crashed. They have to invest in something else. So, and one more than invest in something that can help an environment and also help with that electricity consumption that they need. So.
And Marubeni will be one of the major players, yeah, in this transition towards clean energies.
Yes, we hope to continue being, in terms of energy, IPP, we are one of the largest companies who have invested heavily, like I said, decades of doing business in this space, and we help to keep contributing with the environment, bringing in solar, wind, or battery storage systems to whatever is needed.
Okay, thank you so much. Arigato. That was Solar PV TV together with Alessandro, who is working for Marubeni, but living in Silicon Valley. Thanks for watching.